Hey man, so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Always so much fun to catch up with you. I feel like we always run into each other just by accident, but we're always in like the most beautiful locations when we get to hang out because it's the nature of how we interact. So right now we're in, where's Malibu? We're in Malibu right now. Weather outside is beautiful. I think the last time I saw you, we were in this awesome spot in Austin.
Yep.
So the bar for like where we hang out with each other, so like we can't go to Cleveland, sorry Cleveland, but we can't go to
all those Cleveland people out there, be mad at you.
So I know that you work with ship offers, and there's a lot to that type of business where, for those that don't know, Ship Offer is a company that, and tell me if I butcher this, but you do a lot of different types of fulfillment, a lot of white label. Essentially, if somebody wants to sell a supplement or any number of things, you can really handle the entire process for them in terms of design, fulfillment, even obviously shipping it directly to the customer in a hands-off way. That's a lot of moving parts, man.
Oh yeah, product sourcing. I mean, the logistics behind that, dealing with manufacturers, lead time, scaling inventory. On the fulfillment side, dealing with all of that, packages, carriers, making sure things are going out the right way, scaling that. Yeah.
What's you like me and what I do with M&A, you get to work with a lot of different business owners.
Yep.
And I'm going to guess, like me, you pick up on some trends or some commonalities between the ones that really do well and the ones that maybe struggle a little bit. Are there some that come to mind that you can think of, that the folks you think of, like, man, there's 2 or 3 people I can think of who just killed it, and here's the few things that maybe they have in common?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I've been with Ship Offers now for over 8 years.
Yeah.
And so when I started, we were pretty small. We have now facilities all over the world. US, opened a facility in the EU.
Oh, wow.
In the Netherlands. So that's been exciting, but we have a wide variety of people that come in. And we had to create like some barriers for people to be able to work with us.
Yeah, of course.
But then from there, looking at the companies that have a lot of success, it really is the ones who dive in and understand the numbers and where the business is coming from. I mean, we work with a lot of solopreneurs. Some are big organizations with a board, like the full spectrum, the full gambit, but the ones that actually know their numbers and understand how their business actually works have a ton of success.
Yeah. And I know the nature of your role, there's a lot to strategic partnerships and trying to figure out ways to really create a win-win situation. And there's a lot of that for me as well. Right. What are some things that you have found, or maybe some crazy stories or whatever you want to share about, why that's important and kind of what great looks like when it comes to strategic partnerships? Yeah.
So my role with the company is I'm the VP of sales. So really that's supporting my team from a partnership and sales standpoint.
Sure.
On the partnership side, I mean, that's how we don't we don't run ads. Like our business client acquisition is 100% like organic.
Referrals?
Referrals and relationship building and going out and seeing our clients in person, going out to events and hosting dinners like that. That is how we bring in our client base. We don't do outbound sales.
It's old school.
Old school. We're not going and
I love it.
Getting a list from people. So partnerships are key.
Yes.
For us, and finding partners that align with our mission and supporting the client and how we want to go about that is super important. And so when I look at partnerships, a lot of people are like, okay, referral commission, referral money. Right?
Sure.
That's the least thing on top of my mind. I mean, the biggest thing is 1, how can we support the mutual client?
Yep.
2, how can we support each other? And then 3, they want some referral commission. Cool. But that's really at the bottom of it. And so the hard thing though is finding companies that really align with you and what you're doing. And really the key to the partnerships that we've created that have had the most success for both companies, the partner, us, and the client, have been the ones where we're really looking at solving a pain point for the client. And so ClickBank's probably the best example of that. ClickBank forever was digital products.
Yeah.
They had maybe a couple supplement offers on there like Organifi. And the big thing that we were able to do is identify, why don't you have more supplements on the platform? And the biggest thing there was compliance.
Yeah.
And so being, and then diving into that further and further of why is compliance the bottleneck? And so what we did is we were able to work with them to alleviate that.
Yeah.
And work with their compliance team directly to pre-vet our manufacturers, to pre-vet formulas, to streamline a process internally or between our two companies that would then allow our mutual client to launch in what would take 4, 5, 6 months,
Yeah.
take that to 1 to 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it sounds like I'm hearing, and this really shouldn't be surprising to any of us that have been in business for any length of time, but when you're looking for partnerships and you're looking for really great fits for your organization, and also the other way around,
Yeah.
that you're a great fit for them, one of the first and foremost things you're looking for is there a clear problem that is expensive in preventing success or improved success for this client that we, just because of who we are, we know we can solve it and solve it really well.
Yeah. I mean, that's because everyone wants to partner. And like, it's funny, the bigger you get as a company, the more people are trying to kind of jump on coattail, like, which is great. And
Sure.
like, there's people who've done it.
Champagne problems. Yeah.
But the key to a successful partnership is, how can this be better? Like, whether it's a condensing time, whether it's for speed to implementation, whether that's identifying money savings, whatever that is, having something that actually makes the partnership valuable to the mutual client is key.
Yeah. So you travel. I think you're one of the few people that I've met who you travel more than I do. And that's saying something. You travel quite a bit. And I know it's probably cyclical, some more than others. I also know you have a family and you have kiddos, and I bet your beautiful wife. I'm always interested, and I think viewers would be interested in, what things do you do to try to the best of your ability to create some balance so that you can still be the dad that you need to be and the husband that you need to be, while also making sure that you're just crushing it at work? Is balance bullshit, or is it
balance is important?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to. And like, we were literally talking about it the other night out at a dinner of like, with some people at this event, but we were talking about working remote or working in an office. And for me, I love going to the office because my drive home is my shut off.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm able to completely just disconnect, come home and be present, which I think is the hardest thing to do. Yeah. Like, I still have my phone, stuff still happens, I'm still available for my team, but it is super important to be present. And I grew up blessed with parents who were super involved. And my dad was an exec kind of in the tech sector.
Yeah.
And so he was traveling. He would travel once a week from Oregon to California. Half his team was down there. And so I got a good example of what that looked like, because he still coached sports. He still showed up to everything. And so, and was very present with us. And so I think that was my role model for being a father, is my dad. And so being able to coach my kids' soccer. Yeah. Like, this event this weekend, I flew in a day late because I was coaching soccer that day.
That's awesome.
And so being able to have that flexibility, though, and that's not necessarily, I mean, me making that decision. That's Ship Offers giving us the ability and really having a family first mentality.
Oh, wow. So it's a top down cultural.
100%.
Wow.
100%. Yeah. Like, my team, like, life happens.
Yeah.
Like, life happens all the time. And that's just the reality. And like, we're in office, we're all working, but I get it. Like, if you need to cut out early, kid's sick, something happens, like, that's just the reality. And that's the culture that we have in the company. And I respect Doug and Tony, our owners, for implementing that. But then it's definitely been rippled down throughout the company, and everyone really appreciates it.
Well, and you guys have had such incredible, I would even dare say explosive success and momentum, especially these last few years, that what's really cool to see is when, and I know Tony, great guy, not surprising at all, that's very important to him, for his company to have his people have the opportunity to create some balance in their life and to live a life of meaning and purpose that's outside of the walls of Ship Offers.
Yep.
But the other side of that is you guys have just over-delivered as employees too, because that's the other part of the equation, is that sometimes and I've been on both sides of this, where I've been the owner and I've also been an employee. And sometimes you have this situation where the owner really wants to do that. They want to create a lot of flexibility and they give a lot. And unfortunately, sometimes the staff and the leadership there doesn't necessarily,
live up to
that and reciprocate. And the numbers aren't there, because at the end of the day, we all know that numbers have to be hit. Business doesn't stop. Business has to move. Yep. And so that's I think you guys, I do think of you when I think of a company that has that kind of culture, but also you're fulfilling your end and you're getting it done too. And it's impressive.
I think that goes to how we hire.
Yeah.
Because we hire for culture. Like skill can be learned.
Yeah.
We hire for culture.
So who, not what they know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just how we've built everything with how, like, within the company, and
It's not a micromanaging culture either.
which I think empowers that, like, and also how we structure comp, bonus, like all that type of stuff. Like, there's buy-in from our team, and there's belief from our team, and they see the vision of where we're going. Whether that's on the office side with sales or account management, or a tech team, or even in the warehouse. Like, there's some different cultures between that, but like there's definitely a ton of buy-in from where we're at and like where we're going. And you see the numbers. When I started, so I've been at Ship Offers a little over 8 years now. When I started, there was like 10, 12 of us in like a 6,000 square foot facility. And then
Bootstrapping.
And I mean, we're 24 years in business now, but really when the owners made a conscious decision to, hey, we want to grow this. We want to get out from behind our desks, go to events. Tony started traveling, brought me on to kind of be his protege and work with him. And I learned from him, and it's been awesome.
So that's actually really cool. I'd love to dig into that a little bit, because you don't get to talk to a lot of people who were brought in by a founder of a company explicitly to be a protege and to take some of that owner's, and we've all had them, myriad of responsibilities and all the things that you have to be in the areas of business. You don't get to talk to somebody that often who was brought in specifically to start to do that. So what did that look like? Like, what did that process look like?
So, I mean, I knew Tony from a previous life. Before getting into this world, I was in the network marketing world.
Okay.
Which was a fun experience in college. Me and my roommate started the healthy energy drink company and took it from 4 of us at ASU to, at the peak, we had like 12,000 distributors.
Whoa.
So that was a wild ride.
So you can hustle a little bit.
FTC issues a little bit.
We won't dive into that. That's another conversation. But
yeah, there was a point where I was figuring out kind of what's next. And I was in Colorado. My wife's from Colorado, so I was out in Colorado and was looking at maybe going to Arizona, doing some real estate stuff down there with a buddy. But then Tony, I was meeting with him for coffee, kind of in a mentorship type thing, and he was like, "Hey, you want to come partner with me?" And it was never like, come work for me.
I was going to say, that's a really interesting word that he chose to use. And I'm guessing he chose it very intentionally.
Very intentionally.
Yeah.
100%. Yep.
And I came in with a very humble starting salary, which was good.
Yeah.
It was a little lifestyle change for a bit there.
Because you were making, what you were.
Money, and then it went to zero. And had to go through that. And it was right during our engagement too.
Oh, nice.
My wife stuck with me through that, and
we went through some life experience early on.
Oh yeah. But yeah, coming in with Tony, he had his office, and I sat in a chair with a desk like this next to him, and just kind of learned. And I think people there were like, "What is this Josh guy doing?" Because for like 6 months, I had no idea what I was doing.
Sure.
I was really in observation mode. I went to TNC. My like second week Ship Offers, and met some cool people out there, and it was like, this world is wild. And from there, just kind of dove into everything. And Tony empowered me though, and Doug did as well in a big way. We were able to build out account management roles, sales roles, stuff like that, and I kind of did everything, built the role, and then hired. And that's kind of what it's been.
That sounds like I always describe that as scaffolding. Like when you have somebody like a Tony, or you have the founder, and they're trying to, or you as a leader, you're trying to bring up people under you and have them fulfill roles that it's entirely possible may not fully exist yet today, but we know that they're going to be necessary in the future. And the concept of scaffolding is sort of, I like to give people just a tiny bit more responsibility than I think they can handle, just a little, and let them stretch a little bit, let them grow.
Right.
But know that I or the organization is there in case they stumble a little bit, and that it's okay, and that's part of the education. So it sounds like there was a little bit of that where he was like, "Hey, here's what we need to do. I trust you. Go get it done, Josh, and let us know how it goes."
Yeah, but I always had the resources and the support there.
That's kind of been how I've managed.
And it's really just, how can I support my team? Like, we've done a little bit of a reorg called an expansion. But basically we've set up a kind of another tier of management within the team, and there's some change management there, but it's been really healthy and really good. It's empowered the team more. And so Again, it's the same thing. Like, here's kind of where we're going. You're kind of visioning out like how we're going to grow, and you scaffold it out. But
Sure.
yeah, it's been awesome.
So I want to go back a little bit because I make these mental notes. So I do want to go back to your drives home from work.
Yes.
Call that back a little bit. That was interesting to me because I haven't gone to an office in decades, but I do remember when I did, and this is before I had kids, I remember that drive being sort of a buffer between, it was like, remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he would leave the thing that he was doing with you and he would make a production out of taking off his shoes and changing them and doing the thing.
The transition.
And that transition was always very visual. And I always remember like, okay, the time that I have to drive home is the time for me to transition from this version of me to the version that I need to be, when I get home. And that's before I had kids. So is there some of that where it's like you can decompress and you also know the moment you walk in at your daddy and your husband and you have those responsibilities and you have to have a little bit of time to get that headspace right?
100%. And I think it's super important to do that, especially my wife, she has her own business, works from home.
Yeah.
And so she's in it.
Yeah.
Good thing the kids are both in school now.
Yeah. So she has
So
some
that changes it a bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
But still, she doesn't have that same kind of transition period that I have, I guess.
Yeah.
So
she's never off.
she's never off, and she's also an owner and bootstrapping it and building it. And so she's in constant build mode. So the more supportive I can be to her with that, the better too. Because I mean, it's us together in life. I mean, that's huge, and that's what we've always done.
Yeah.
And so we both try to support each other as best I can. I mean, I travel, like you said, and so I try not to be on the road more than I need to be.
Yeah.
There's opportunities to travel with the family, which is cool. This past summer with the EU facility opening, we took the kiddos with us.
Oh, I love it.
To Europe.
Love it.
We were out there for a month.
Yeah.
So 2.5 weeks in the Netherlands, France at the Olympics, then the UK.
Oh, I love it, man.
I mean, that part of that's
Ship offers again.
Sure.
Empowering me to do that.
That's a great tip, by the way, for whether you own your company or you're a senior level employee or sometimes sales, you see this where sales folks have to go, and you're trying to go a particular place to get a very important deal done that has a, significant impact on the bottom line of the company. If there's a way, and you don't know until you ask, but if there's a way for you, and you can, to bring your family with you and let them experience some of that while you're there, I can tell you from experience, and I'm sure you'd agree, it enriches the trip and it makes the experience better, more pleasant. I know that when I'm out doing deals, if my family's with me, now there is a little bit more scatterbrainness that can happen when my family and kids are with me, but that's just the price you pay, and it's awesome. But my stress level's lower because it's sort of like, these are my people and they're with me. Yeah. Your wife being an entrepreneur and you being in business, and I would even say, I've known you long enough to say this.
Yep.
You work with someone else, but I consider you to be an entrepreneur because of the nature of what your company is and the role you play in your company.
Right.
You're an entrepreneur. You're just working with a couple other guys who are entrepreneurs building this thing.
Yep.
What's that like? Because my wife is amazing. She's an amazing mom, but she's not an entrepreneur. She's a business person, and that's her full-time thing. And I'm always interested in the dynamic between having two of those personalities who are both probably kind of driven and entrepreneurial. Like, what's that like? What are some of the positives and maybe some challenges that you've had to work through?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Everything's a double-edged sword. It's the pros and the cons. I mean, for us, I think that we both have very, very big goals for what we want to achieve.
Sure.
Individually and as a couple and as a family.
Yeah.
And so really we know that we're in it together. Like I mentioned earlier, like we're supporting each other, but there are times where it's like, okay, kid's sick. You got this meeting. I got that meeting. What do we do?
Who's it?
Yeah. And so we're blessed. Like we're intentionally living where we are because we have family support.
Yeah.
In those type of scenarios. But then also we do intentionally like set time to be a family and to focus on family things. And we're both not only is my wife an entrepreneur, she also is founder of a nonprofit. She also is a room mom for school.
Yeah.
She's doing like everything.
Oh yeah.
So
and that's a hard job, by the way.
That's managing volunteers.
Yeah.
Hard job. But yeah, there's just a lot there that life gets busy. And so we try to find our time where we're not busy.
Yeah.
And that's super important. But it's supporting each other. It's kind of finding that balance, and we schedule things out. We pay for some stuff to happen to make things a little easier with both incomes, and whether that's cleaning the house, stuff like that. Like, we want that balance.
Yeah. It's always interesting to see the dynamics with couples, and especially so when you have both that are in business or entrepreneurs. But even if not, like in my case, I could never in a million years be who I am and have the impact that I get to make if I didn't have my wife at home just holding it down with the kids. And you know, the room mom thing, I cannot tell you how many times she's working like 8-hour days when the kids are at school on things that are free.
Yep.
You know, because it just takes that much to organize. You know, my kids are in a school where the elementary school has 800 kids in it. The middle school has 2,000, and the high school has 4,000 kids.
Schools.
They are. They're big schools, and there's a lot of things that have to happen from a community perspective to, you know, to get not just our kids, but all those kids there the best we can, the best experience we can. And so, you know, the joke, it's not really a joke. The joke with her is like, I think you worked harder than I did today, and you made no money. And she does not like it when I say that, but you know, there's some truth. So that's incredibly impressive that, you know, that she does that. And I've had the privilege of spending some time around your wife, and just the dynamic between you two is really fun to watch, because you have two, you know, very bright, driven people who sort of accidented their way into finding each other. And it's really interesting to see. Now, how many children do you have? Two. And they're
6 and 3.
Oh man. So, okay. So you're still in it, especially with the 3-year-old.
3-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah.
And 3-year-old, she's a little sassy girl. She's amazing, but
that's beautiful though.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So mine are 13, 10, and 8.
Okay.
So a little further ahead of you, 2 daughters and a son. And I have to tell you, I feel like every age, except for maybe baby, every age has been my favorite age. I think that might be a difference between men and women.
Mm-hmm.
Women usually love the baby phase. I didn't, because I didn't know what to do.
Well,
I didn't feel very useful.
Can do.
And there was a lot of crying and, you know, disruption. But when they come into their own and they start to be able to communicate with you and they have their personality, it's so much fun to be able to see who they become. And now my kids are either teen or preteen, and they have their own language that I don't fully understand. Like, I don't know what skibbity means, Josh. I don't know what these things, like they have sort of their own little, but it's fun to see. I've taken to a new pastime, which is I realized that my favorite thing to do in the world is not business. It's not sports. It's actually embarrassing my kids in front of their friends. That's really the thing that I relish the most. So, but you don't get to that until they're old enough to have sort of some social awareness. So you can look forward to that.
Can't do that one yet. Yeah, we're building.
No, you can't go to pre-K and like just rip into them in front of their friends.
I'm at the stage where
I'm like Superman. So anything that I do,
yes,
to do. So
he's all into sports.
Yeah.
He'll watch the whole.
Really?
No matter what, hockey, basketball, football. It doesn't matter what it is, start to finish.
He probably really is just wanting to spend time with dad.
100%.
Yeah. And that's the good stuff, man. Do you guys have a dynamic where, and it's usually one parent or the other, where one parent is sort of the disciplinarian and the other is maybe not so much, but then like I'm usually the one that if I raise my voice or say something, I only have to do it once and they'll do it. But what's interesting is that because of that, that also allows me to sort of sneakily like, go ahead, you can have that milkshake. It's okay. Daddy said it's all right. Like, what's your dynamic there?
I think it's so with a boy and a girl.
Yeah.
Our oldest, our son, I'm probably more of the whatever you want, disciplinarian with him.
Okay. Yeah.
He's oldest. I'm oldest.
Yeah.
Wife's youngest. My daughter is the youngest.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of have like this crisscross with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So my daughter, she can kind of get away with anything with me.
It's like
not unusual.
That's pretty common. But no, that's kind of like a weird cross dynamic there.
Yeah. What are some things that you look back on? And if you could go back, this is always an interesting exercise for me. If you could go back and talk to yourself at, 21, 22 years old, knowing what you know now, and like you're writing a letter to yourself, what would you say? What would you tell yourself?
Well, when we were doing the MLM stuff, we were spending money about as fast as it came in.
Yeah.
Like
on like personal stuff, like fun or
well, I mean, then we wrote off. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're 21, 22,
Yeah.
and you're making pretty good money,
Sure.
there's some life stuff there that
Of course.
the only good. I bought a house. That was good.
Smart.
That was smart. But there's some financial stuff that was not smart.
Yes.
So like going back, I mean, but outside of that, like I was growing up in a house where like corporate America was what it was. And then I was fortunate enough to have a roommate whose parents were entrepreneurs. And so I kind of had both worlds exposed to me early on. I changed degrees like 3 times. I dropped out with a semester left, ended up going back like 5 years later, doing it online and getting my degree.
Good
but
for
like,
you.
I think all the life experiences that you're taking, like just be open to, you don't know what conversation or what happens for a reason. Like I had a roommate who was supposed to live with me and then moved out, then he didn't go to school, and then the new one came in, and that's how I got introduced to like this whole world of network marketing. It's just like little things happen for a reason, and like instead of like trying to cause friction with them, like kind of take them in stride and be open, I guess.
So it sounds like it's almost trust the process. It all works out in the end.
Yeah, and as long as you're like sticking to your values and like who you are, but going through the process, like I think that works.
Don't try to pretend to be something that you're not.
For sure.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Dude, so enjoyed the conversation.
Thank
Always
you.
good to see you.
Always.
Thank you, brother.